it became instead we tried to see if we could all yell the entire time we were going through a tunnel or make goat noises, and that was way more fun. So I would recommend
goat noises. Can you
like,
please give us a demonstration?
like the whole time.
Hi, I'm Ryan. I'm a science teacher.
I'm Cheryl, and I slept through science.
Each episode will tackle a science question you may have learned in school, but can't quite remember or fully explain.
And I'll take the risk of asking the dumb questions so that we can all understand the science we slept through.
The bell has rung. Let's get started. Welcome to lesson 67. We are in our Quackery unit. And as a matter of fact, this is the last lesson in our Quackery unit. Cheryl, what would you like to do to wrap up Quackery?
Well, Ryan, when I think about different aspects or types of quackery, there's one that we haven't really touched on yet that I think is really important and something that is still pretty like widely believed globally. And that is superstitions.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you and I talked about, is there one we want to dive into? And really, we just want to talk about superstitions. So I think we can do a couple things today to kind of touch on all sorts of them and just kind of see, reminding me of a couple episodes ago when you were telling me the story about how people used to think that flies came from meat, rotting meat. That seems similar maybe to some of the things we're going to be talking about today, where there's a little bit of a correlation, but not a causation going on here.
Yeah.
So how does that sound?
I think that sounds great. For the pre-assessment, why don't we start with what is a superstition, Cheryl?
Ooh. I mean, I started doing a little bit of reading about it. Honestly, it's kind of a spiritual belief, but I don't think a lot of people would call it a spiritual belief.
Okay.
Because a lot of them are about how something that you do physically can impact your luck in one way or another. Good luck, bad luck, ways to counteract it. And a lot of that has to do with like confusing the spirits or things like that. And so it seems like there's a lot of spirituality tied into it, even if people are like don't have their own spiritual beliefs aside from that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think most people would initially talk about them as spiritual, but I think you're right, because if you use spiritual in its broadest sense of something beyond the natural world that influences something about our lives, then yeah, that's exactly what a superstition is. Where would you like to start today, Cheryl? Because I think we could talk about superstitions around the world, or we could talk about superstitions here in our neck of the world. I don't know that that's the right expression. It should be neck of the woods. Although, have you ever thought about that? Neck of the woods. Do the woods have a neck?
Is it? I always picture it being like a bend in a road, and that's like the neck, but maybe that's not.
Could be. I don't know.
But it is.
That's a whole nother rabbit hole, which is yet another expression.
Well, I have a quiz that I found online, and I have not really vetted it, but that's fine. It's from mentalfungus.com. So how could we go wrong?
Mentalfungus.com?
Yes, you heard me correctly.
Okay, great.
And it is a little multiple choice quiz. I don't know the answers to it. So you and I can come up with our guesses together.
Okay.
And we are going to guess which superstition belongs to which country.
Oh, okay. I don't know that I'm going to do that well on this, but here we go.
Each one only has 4 options, so that does help. We're not guessing from all of the countries that exist.
That helps.
Yeah. All right. The first one is, if a pregnant woman eats an unshapely food during pregnancy, she will give birth to an ugly baby.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
Mongolia, Spain, Korea, Ireland.
Well, I've been to Ireland. You've been to Spain. That doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
that we necessarily know the different superstitions.
I know.
I've never heard this one before.
I haven't either. I mean, my initial thought was Korea. I don't know why.
Okay, my initial thought
Um,
was Mongolia.
all
But then
right.
I was like, well,
We're
but there's
both
the whole
thinking like
potato
Asia.
thing. Yeah, but then there was like the potato thing with Ireland and maybe like misshapen potato. I don't know. I really don't know.
Let's do Mongolia. We'll do your Mongolia here.
Okay.
It was Korea.
Korea. Okay. Good
All
job,
right.
Cheryl. Point for Cheryl.
Thank you. I'll take 1 point. If you both say the same word at the same time while talking to each other, you will not get married. To undo this, you must touch your nose immediately.
Wait, so they would not get married to each other or not get married ever?
Doesn't say.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Italy, India, Saudi Arabia, or Norway. They're really doing a good job of getting like geographically like a wide range
Yeah.
of country options.
I really don't know. Norway. I don't know.
I'm going to say India.
Okay.
Let's see what it is. It is Italy.
Ooh, okay.
So neither of us got a point on that one.
No.
All right. If you sing at the dinner table, it means you're singing to the devil for your food.
Okay. All
This
righty.
sounds like a way to get children to behave at the dinner
It does.
table.
It totally does.
All right. We have Brazil, Netherlands, India, or Scotland.
Gosh.
Which countries still believe in the devil? Maybe all of them in some
That's
way or
true.
another. I'm going to say Brazil.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. I was going to go with Brazil.
Okay. The Netherlands.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
We are not doing well.
You shouldn't wear red during a storm. It's believed that the color red attracts lightning.
Okay.
Philippines, Sri Lanka, Thailand, or England.
I don't think it's England because I don't think they get a lot of lightning.
Oh, fair. Yeah, I was thinking that the color red is luck in certain Asian countries, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then I wouldn't think that that would be a negative thing.
What were the other three countries other than England?
Philippines, Sri Lanka, and Thailand.
I'm going to say Sri Lanka because I think it's the most fun to say.
Okay, I'm going to say Philippines.
Okay.
It's the Philippines.
Look at that.
All right, I have
2
2
for Cheryl.
If you enter a room with your left foot, it will bring you bad luck.
Oh.
Belgium, Portugal, France, or Spain. Those are very close to each other.
Uh-huh.
Those are all Europe.
Uh-huh.
And 3 of those are touching.
Belgium. I don't know.
I'm going to say Portugal. Spain.
Spain.
I never
You've
heard
been
that
to
when I was in
Spain.
Spain.
Okay.
No one was telling me about the way I stepped into a room. Wow, I bet I offended a lot of people.
I bet you did. I bet you did.
If you open an umbrella indoors, it will bring bad luck for you. I've heard this one.
So have I. Is United States one of the options?
No, but we have Peru, Ecuador, England, and Slovakia.
Well, I would go with England just because maybe we inherited it from them.
Yep.
All right.
Yep, it's England. You have
3
1.
for Cheryl. I'm on the board.
All right. You should tuck your thumbs in when passing a graveyard to protect your parents. I like it more that we don't know the history or the context for these. It's even better because you're like, wait, what do thumbs have to do? I was thinking like hitchhiking, tuck your thumb in when punching someone, and then you'd break your thumb. I'm like, what else? Tucking thumbs.
I don't know.
Japan, Australia, Austria, or Bolivia. I'm going to say Japan because there's a lot about ancestors in Japan.
That's true. I was going to say Australia, but I'll bet you're right. I'm still going to go with Australia.
Okay. It's Japan.
Yep.
What for? You should not chew gum at night. It is the equivalent of chewing on the flesh of the dead.
But only at
Ooh,
night.
yeah, I guess so.
Gross.
Maybe that's when it turns into zombie gum.
Gross.
Maybe. All right, we have Oman,
Uh-huh.
Oman, Turkey, Egypt, and Greece. I mean, I'm going Egypt. How can you not with those mummies?
Oman. Oh, Turkey, Egypt, and Greece. I'm going to go with Oman.
Okay.
You're probably going to be right again.
Turkey.
Oh, okay.
Interesting. If you let your purse touch the floor, you will become penniless. I had a coworker tell me this recently. I put my purse on the ground in a meeting. She said, "Don't put your purse on the ground. It's bad luck." And then she proceeded to say, I mean, also it could just like get your purse dirty and you should take care.
Sure.
But then she said you might become penniless. Like, she was telling me that. It's so interesting.
Oh, interesting.
Brazil, France, China, and Germany. Now, this coworker of mine is Indian and was born in Canada, and neither of those countries are on there.
What were the countries again?
Brazil, France, China, Germany.
I'd go with France.
That was what I was thinking too. Let's try France. It was Brazil.
Oh, okay.
All right. If you say happy birthday before the day arrives, it will bring bad luck.
Oh.
England, Bolivia, Russia, Poland. I'm going to say Bolivia just because I haven't seen it on
I was going to say Bolivia too, but I don't know.
It's Russia.
Okay, great.
All right. You
Basically,
should not
if
place
I think it's it, you shouldn't pick it.
You should not place two mirrors opposite each other. It will open a doorway for the devil.
I mean, true. It's a true statement.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Scientifically proven.
Oh.
It's a fact. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then all of the countries would believe it because it's true.
Yep. Because if something's true, everybody always believes that.
Yeah. India, Mexico, Nepal, Sweden. I'm going Mexico.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Mexico too.
Yes. We got it. Am I at 5?
You're at 5 and I'm at 2.
Oh my gosh. Whistling indoors invites evil. The noise is believed to summon demons. Man, a lot about music. Like,
music is evil. Stop, Cheryl. No more music.
Germany, Lithuania, US, or Romania. I'm going to say Romania.
I was going to go with Germany.
All right. Lithuania.
Okay.
You should not cheers with water. If you cheers with water, you're actually wishing death upon the people you're drinking with.
Oh my. Okay.
Sounds like a bartender came up with that one. Is what I'm
Yeah.
thinking. He's trying to get some drink sales going on.
Yeah.
Italy, Australia, Croatia, Germany. You've been to 3 of those countries?
Say it again.
Italy, Australia, Croatia, Germany.
I've been to all of those countries.
Oh my gosh. Well, which one did people think you were wishing them death when you cheers with water, Ryan?
I don't know. People are going to be so mad at me. Was it Italy was the first one?
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's Italy or Germany, I think.
I'm going Germany. What do you think for yourself?
That was my gut was Germany.
Okay. Correct.
Yay!
All right, we'll do a couple more. If you have an itch on your right hand, it means you'll come into some money. Turkey, Chile, England, Argentina.
Oh, that's not fair. Chile and Argentina? Argentina.
I'm going to say England. Turkey.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
All right, we'll do one more. This list kind of keeps on going. We'll do one more. Accidentally stepping on dog poop is considered good luck, but only if you do it with your left foot.
Ugh,
Sounds like a
not
very like
here.
positive thinker. They're like,
Uh-huh.
no, it's good luck. France, Sudan, South Africa, Morocco.
You've been to Morocco.
I have. I didn't see any dog poop.
Sudan. I don't know.
I'm gonna say South Africa. It was France.
Oh,
They
okay.
do bring their dogs everywhere.
Okay.
Interesting. All right. Well, we still have a lot to learn then, I think, about superstitions around the world.
Yeah, clearly not great. At least I'm not great. But did you know, Cheryl, that we have superstitions here in the United States as well?
I've heard tell.
Yeah. What's interesting is when you hear superstitions from other countries, I think it's a lot easier for us to be like, well, that's just silly. Why would anyone believe that? When I don't know that we always recognize the superstitions that are embedded in our own culture. And
Okay.
I have some examples for you.
Okay.
Some of these that I think you've probably you've definitely heard of before, but how about things like the number 13?
I was born on the 13th. So not on a Friday, but some years my birthday. Ryan's trying to ward me off. Sometimes my birthday falls on Friday the 13th. And then it's
Yep.
funny because like I just never have thought of it as an unlucky number. But I know other people think that.
Mhm.
And then some people are like, well, it's Friday the 13th. And I'm like, yeah, it's my birthday. So, yeah.
And then sometimes there are some buildings that don't number a 13th floor. Not always, but there are some. A lot of airplanes don't number the 13th row. Did you know
That's
this?
serious then.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've heard about the building thing. I had not heard about the airplane or noticed the airplane thing. Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, so it actually shows up in a number of places. So that's one. Do you know the one about spilling salt?
Yeah. Then you're supposed to toss some over your shoulder. Otherwise, it's bad
Otherwise,
luck.
it's bad luck. Yep. So that's one. Here's one that I wouldn't have initially called a superstition until I read this on a website that, of course, we'll link in the description. Bad news or bad things come in threes.
Oh, I've heard that occasionally. I've heard people say that.
Yeah. I've heard that from a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
That bad news or bad things come in threes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of a bad luck one.
Yeah.
There was a survey done by YouGov America. They surveyed 1,000 people about superstitions. And here are the ones that the most people believed. I'll go from most to least. Are you ready for this?
Yes.
Okay. And this is, they grouped them by good luck superstitions and bad luck superstitions. So the top one, and when I say the most people believed, it was 28%. So it's not like it's everybody believes this, but it was the most believed one. Making a wish while blowing out birthday candles.
Oh, yep. Yeah.
Right? Like that is, even if you don't believe it, you still know it and you still do it.
Or you'll say, make a wish.
Yep.
Or you don't get the wish unless you blow out all the candles in one breath.
Exactly. Oh, yes. You see, you know all the rules. Okay. Similar, seeing a shooting star.
Oh, yeah. Making a wish on a shooting star.
Right.
Well.
I mean, that's embedded in Disney.
When you wish upon a star. Yep.
Oh, very good. Very nice.
Yeah,
okay.
thank you.
Saying bless you when someone sneezes.
Oh, it's something about losing your soul.
Well, depending on which culture you're hearing it from, because there's a couple of different things you can do. But just saying that. And again, do you believe that you're actually blessing the person? I think most people probably don't, but there's an element of that.
Yes. And you wouldn't say that like if someone coughed, you wouldn't say anything.
Right.
And yet it's a similar thing.
Yep. Yeah. It's interesting. How about this? Knock on wood.
Oh, that's just like Yeah, it's saying like if the creek don't rise, like it's like
Mm-hmm.
knock
If
on wood.
the idea is, yeah,
Yeah.
if you knock on wood, then the bad thing that you mentioned won't happen. It's like it prevents
Yep.
it from happening. And even
Yeah.
though I think most people don't believe it's true, people
They
do it
do it.
all the time. They say it, they do
Mhm.
it.
They're
I've
like,
done it.
where's wood? We need some wood
Mm-hmm.
real quick. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Or they say like, don't even say it in the first place. Like whatever
Yes.
the bad thing is, like don't
Yep.
mention it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hmm.
4-leaf clovers,
Oh yeah.
right? If you find a 4-leaf
Hmm.
clover, when you were a kid, did you like go in a clover patch and like dig through and try to
Yes.
find the
Yeah.
4-leaf clover because it was good luck?
Yeah. Hmm.
Mm-hmm. Crossing your fingers.
Oh, like hope this happens.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Crossing my fingers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cross your fingers.
Yeah. Fingers
Yeah.
crossed. We're gonna.
Fingers
Yeah.
crossed. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And then there's some, it continues to do a bunch, but I think those are a lot of the big ones. Some of the bad luck ones, walking under a ladder.
Yeah, I heard I had to do something with like triangle shapes and spirits. And then
Mm,
also, honestly, I agree with that one because of safety.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Like, it's
Yeah.
just like probably a good idea to
To
not
walk
anyway.
around. Yeah.
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 Broken mirrors.
Mm. Yep.
The number 666.
Yeah. That's from the Bible. That's the
Mm-hmm.
devil's number.
Yep. But it
Yeah.
gets used for a whole lot of things. Just think of like horror movies. How often is 666
Oh, yeah.
6 used for things or whatever?
Yeah.
Black cats.
Oh, yeah. But they're
Mm.
cute. So it's okay.
So it's okay, right?
Yeah.
Stepping on a crack.
Break your mother's back.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Holding your breath while going through a tunnel.
Oh, yeah. I do that as a fun game. And
Uh-huh.
then when I worked at a camp, we would do that with a bunch of like teenagers. And then it became instead we tried to see if we could all yell the entire time we were going through a tunnel or make goat noises. And that was way more fun. So I would recommend
Goat noises. Can you
just, like,
please give us a demonstration?
like the whole time you're going through. And that's way more fun. So I'd say when you're on the road trips, everybody with your fam, just have your kids start doing that instead. And it's
That
funnier
won't
than the holding the
drive
breath.
you crazy at all. Well,
Depends on how many tunnels are on your trip.
it is. This is an interesting kind of cross-cultural one too, because when I've been to Slovenia and Croatia and we've gone to camps and we do, couple-hour drives, and at least in that part of Europe, but I think it's fairly common throughout Europe, often when they're going through mountain passes, they just tunnel all the way through. Here we tend to kind of go around, and we might have a few short tunnels, but they will have tunnels that go for multiple kilometers. So if you like try to hold your breath, you're like, you can't, like you physically can't.
Oh no.
So that's an interesting sort of difference in the way that it plays out
Wow.
in other parts of the world.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Here's one. Which groups of Americans are most likely to say that they're superstitious? Like
Well,
to
what are the
self-report.
options? What do you mean by
Oh,
groups?
there are so many options. I don't know. I mean, I could just give you
Like, do you mean like age or region
there's
from?
an age. Yep.
Or...
You could there's one that's an age range. So do you want to pick an age range? Now this is self-reporting. So I would say probably adults, probably discount children.
Old people.
Like how old is old people?
80 plus.
Okay. The highest self-reporters were 30 to 44.
In like
That's us.
That's us. I do feel like I know a lot of people who are superstitious. I actually have a funny one I heard. So you know how a lot of people, when their sports team is playing, they like to wear the jersey. And I think a lot of them is just like a fun camaraderie. Like we're all rooting for this team. Yay. And I was talking to somebody at my work and she was saying, oh, no, I'm a huge fan of the Seahawks. I never ever wear their jersey on game day because whenever I do that, they lose. And I don't want to jinx it. And that was so interesting because it was like, you think you control their wins and loss? You have that control? If you really break it down, it was just like, I don't think you're that powerful. But
And yet,
you
a
know,
lot of sports have a lot of superstition connected to them. Things
so
like
many,
that.
so
Well, I did this and the team won, and therefore I have to do that every time. Or I didn't do this, or, we have to do this combination of things, or whatever it
Yep.
is. Yeah, sports often have a lot of superstition. Some sports more than others, but and
I mean, I could
athletes.
see for the players, if they get good sleep and hydration and eat well, that they might play better.
That's just a superstition, Cheryl. Yeah, but I mean that's an example of us finding patterns in things that don't always have patterns, right? So for example, the jersey example, when I wear the jersey, they don't win. Well, what's the sample size? Like how many times like did you actually try it multiple times? And that's one of those things that's very tricky because you can't really run a controlled experiment
No.
in a really super easy way. I mean, one thing you could do, but the problem is it's a different team every year. But like, let's say if it's football, because they have fewer games, you could wear the jersey for all of the games for an entire season and record their wins and losses. And then not wear the jersey for an entire season and record their wins and losses. You have to do something. You can't just do, well, I'm going to wear it for this one and not wear it for that one, because then just the natural variability. So it's hard to create like a controlled experiment to really say, yes, see, this thing does, other than your personal experience, your personal anecdote that says, that thing is true.
Yeah.
Okay, let me do some, again, remember this is self-reported. I'm going to give you two groups and which one self-reported that they were more superstitious. Okay. Men or women?
Women.
Women reported 30% of the time, men 23% of the time.
Okay.
Democrats or Republicans?
Democrats.
Republicans.
Interesting.
But not by a lot. Republicans 30%, Democrats 29%.
Oh, very similar.
So that's very, very, very similar.
Wow. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Catholics or Protestants?
Catholics.
Catholics was actually the top reported one in this particular representation. 37%, Protestants 26%.
Interesting. Okay.
People who live in cities, people who live in suburbs.
Cities.
Cities 34%, suburbs 22%.
Wow. Okay, that's a significant difference. I'm not surprised by these.
No, why not?
I'm trying to profile people.
Stereotypes, huh?
Yeah. Like I think I don't know. It just makes sense.
Okay. How about this? People who are spiritual, people with no particular religion, or atheists and agnostics.
People with no particular religion.
Think they are the most or the least?
I'm between the no particular or the atheist / agnostics.
For most or least?
For the most.
For the most, okay. So people who are spiritual are the most at 32%.
Okay.
People with no particular religion, 19%.
Okay.
Atheists and agnostics are the smallest of all of the groups at 14%.
Okay, I respect that. Because if you're spiritual, where I was saying earlier, I think superstitions are spiritual beliefs. So at least you're being consistent. And if you're saying, I don't believe in a higher power or I'm not sure about it, then it is very consistent to say that higher power would include superstitions that I don't believe in.
Yeah.
I respect that. Yeah.
Okay. Family income of $100,000 or more. Family income of $50,000 to $100,000. Family income under $50,000.
I would guess the middle one.
The middle one is what?
Well, you read me 3.
I did, but the middle one is what though? You think the middle one is the most superstitious, the least
Most.
superstitious? The most. Okay. So the middle one. So if you're in between $50,000 and $100,000.
Oh, I could see it going either way. I really could. That one's hard. Yeah. But that's what I think.
Family income of $100,000 or more is the most superstitious.
Oh, that was my first guess.
Family income of $50,000 to $100,000 is second.
Yep.
At 25%. And family income under $50,000 was the least at 24%. I mean, those last two are very similar, 24 and 25%. But
that makes so much sense, because if you're well off, things have just worked out for you financially.
You're more lucky.
Uh-huh. It worked out for you. And it just happened. I mean, there are people who truly like work their butts off to make a lot of money. And I think there's a lot of people who also work their butts off and happen to not be able to make a lot of money. So I think there is a lot of chance with it. But I think then you can attribute that to luck. Yeah.
Yeah, it gets complicated. And I mean, there's obviously lots of factors. There's also, what you grew up with and advantages that you already had and things like that. Okay. How about region of the US where you live? Okay. People who live in the West, like you and I. People who live in the Northeast. People who live in the South. People who live in the Midwest.
And between South or Midwest.
As the most.
Yeah, although I also said city. I'm going to say South. South was my gut.
As the most? Okay. The one with the most is people who live in the Northeast, 33%.
Oh. Okay.
People who live in the South is the second with 28%. Okay. People who live in the Midwest is third at 25%. And people who live in the West, like you and I, are the least at 19%.
Not surprised, but I knew it wasn't the West. I think my thoughts on that were places with a longer history, I would guess, have
more time for those kind of cultural beliefs to have like come together.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. One more about this particular study, and then we'll move on to something else. Level of education attained. Okay. So people with a high school degree or less, people with a college degree only, so just an undergraduate degree, or people with postgraduate degrees, so like masters or doctorates.
College degree, most.
And why?
Well, I'm going with it was the highest income level, which means there might be a higher education level. But I wonder if once you get to the like post, just like further degrees, if you get to that, like you're too learned to believe in that stuff, maybe.
Well, nice job, Cheryl. You got this one. Because yes, the people with a college degree only, 30% of them self-reported that they were superstitious. People with a high school degree or less, 28%. And the postgraduate degree was the second lowest of all of the categories at 18%.
Yeah, that checks out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, remember, this is all self-reported, and all of these percentages are under 50%. So when we're saying the people who are most likely, it's still not super common, right? So it's not like, oh, well, if you live in the Northeast, everybody in the Northeast is superstitious. That is not what this means. That's not the way this works. It's just more common comparatively to all of those. I just wanted to make sure we had that disclaimer that we're not saying that is where people are superstitious. All of these are not super common as far as percentages of people who would claim to be superstitious. But I do think with sort of some of the ones that we listed, there are a lot of these that are cultural. And even if we don't directly believe them, there is a part of us that I think we don't fully disbelieve them either, if that
Yep.
distinction makes sense.
Yes. Yes. It also means that I'm pretty good at profiling people. So reading people, is that a kinder way of saying that?
Uh-huh. Yeah, as opposed to like stereotyping people.
It means I'm stereotyping people correctly.
Well, sometimes probably, but also probably sometimes not. That comes back to that confirmation bias there.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, earlier you were sharing with me some of our local to the US superstitions that we were
Mm-hmm.
familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I actually have some more information on those, such as
Okay.
maybe where the origin of some of them that I thought I'd share with you.
Oh, yes, please.
Um,
That's very interesting.
we'll see. We'll see if you have any guesses. Actually, Friday the 13th. Do you know what's unlucky about 13?
Well, what I'm going to say, I think is probably going to show you how culturally unaware I am. Did it actually come from the movie?
No,
Okay.
no, that'd be amazing.
I mean, because I feel like there's something like that that actually came from a movie, but maybe not. Maybe I'm making it
Interesting.
up in my head.
It says that one version of the origin is that it comes from Judas Iscariot, who was the 13th guest at the Last Supper and betrayed Jesus, who was crucified on a Friday.
Okay. I don't know that that's true, but okay, great. Okay.
That was really interesting. Let's see. We are also talking about walking under a ladder. And I was
Uh-huh.
mentioning the triangle thing. It says the shape of an open ladder is a triangle, which signifies life in some mythologies. When you walk through the triangle, it's thought that you tempt the fates. You also run the risk of awakening spirits that live within the triangle, including evil spirits who may not be happy with the disturbance.
I know this is not the same thing at all, but do you know what that reminded me as you were talking about it?
I just think about Hercules when I think about the fates, but
Oh, the
probably
Fates.
not
Yes, I
that.
think
Yeah.
of Hercules.
Yeah.
Yes. What the
Uh-huh.
Disney movie Hercules. Let's
Yes.
clarify.
Yes.
We're talking
Yeah.
about the same Hercules. I know we are, just so everybody
Yeah.
else knows. No, but I don't remember what it was called, but the doorway in Harry Potter in the Department of
Oh.
Mysteries.
Oh.
I don't know why, but
Where
like
he
that was
saw
the
like his ancestors and like the people who had passed.
well, he was like hearing voice. That's the one that Sirius Black passed through,
Yes. Yeah. The
right?
good people were on the other side of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for some reason, when you just talked about like doorway to the spirits and things like that's immediately, I pictured a triangle ladder
Version.
with like
Yeah.
that blue, like hazy stuff in
Uh-huh.
it. I don't know. I don't know why, but that's
Interesting.
where my brain
But
went.
here's the good news. If you accidentally walk under a ladder, you can counteract the bad luck by placing your thumb between your index and middle fingers,
Uh-huh.
okay, and holding it for at least 5 seconds, or the fingers on both hands, or cross the fingers on both hands while calling upon the sign of the cross to protect you from evil.
The cross shall protect me from evil.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know that
Yeah.
I'm doing that right, but okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We talked about breaking a mirror,
Mm-hmm.
and
That one's 7 years bad luck.
that's
I know
7
that one.
years. That may be because 7 years is the time it takes to replace all of the cells in your physical body.
I don't think that's true because I'm pretty sure that superstition has been around longer than we knew that. And actually, it's also not true because you do not replace all of the cells in your body every 7 years. That's not true.
Interesting. So even
Yeah.
the scientific part of that
Is not
explanation is not scientific.
Yep.
It says it is in a more superstitious time, mirrors were thought to be reflections of the soul. So breaking a mirror was believed to be harmful to your soul.
Kind of like shattering your soul. Again, like Voldemort. I don't know why I'm continuing to make Harry Potter
I love
connections.
that. That's great. And then were we talking about the opening an umbrella?
Yeah.
Oh, that was on our first quiz, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One superstition holds that because umbrellas shade us from the sun, they're somehow magical.
Okay.
When the umbrella is opened inside out of the way of the sun's rays, it offends the sun god.
Yep, that does seem offensive to the sun god. I can see that. Yeah. I would be offended if I was a sun god too.
And then the knock on wood.
Oh, uh-huh.
Let's see. The origin is well-known superstition dates back to a time when some cultures believed that gods lived in trees. To ask the
Oh.
gods for a favor, people would lightly tap on the bark of the tree. Then, to say
Ah.
thank you when the favor was granted, a person would knock lightly on the same tree.
Okay, that one makes sense to me.
It
I'm
seems more
sorry.
like linear, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, okay, if I believe that there is a spiritual being of some kind in that tree and I want a favor and I like knock that lightly, it's like, hey, can you help?
A
Like that.
nice little,
Yeah,
yeah.
like, so again, knock on wood, you say, I want this thing or I don't want this thing to happen, knock on wood. I'm making the request.
Yeah.
I don't know. For some reason, that one makes sense.
The salt one to me makes a lot of sense,
Okay.
actually.
Okay.
For most of human history, salt has been very valuable. In
Mhm.
some places and times, it's worth its weight in gold. One common superstition held that it could purify the soul and ward off evil spirits. So when you spill any amount of salt, you ought to take a pinch and toss it over your left shoulder. By doing this, the superstition says you will drive away any evil spirits attracted to the spill who may want to cause misfortune for the unlucky spiller. So the spirit part, whatever. But as far as like this is really valuable and you're
Mhm.
spilling it, is
Mhm.
like I could see how a lot of negativity is around
Yeah.
spilling something really
Yeah.
valuable.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that was interesting.
Yep.
Black cats. Some people believed that witches kept them, and some people believed that after 7 years, black cats could turn into witches or demons.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh. And then the bless you after sneezing. In 6th century Europe, people congratulated anyone who sneezed. They believed the person was expelling evil spirits.
Mm.
Early Romans believed that a strong sneeze could release your soul into the world and a bless you would keep it safely home.
Mm.
And when the Black Plague hit Europe in 1665, the Pope required everyone to be blessed when they sneeze. He believed that a sneeze was a sign that the person would likely die soon. So if that was today, then it would be coughing because of COVID.
Mhm. Yeah,
Actually.
that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's some more information on some of our superstitions that
Yeah.
we've heard about before.
They all come from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing, Cheryl. That was very interesting.
For sure.
I think it just shows us that where a lot of these superstitions come from is some common things we've kind of already talked about in this unit that leads us to believe things that aren't true just in general. Confirmation bias is a big one where you are looking for something that confirms the thing that you already believe, and you can find that. One of the superstitions that we didn't talk about that I think is a great example of this, and I still hear regularly, is the idea that people are crazier and weirder things happen around a full moon.
Oh my gosh. People really try to point to science with that too.
Oh yeah,
Like
absolutely.
gravitational
Mhm.
pulls or things like that.
Yep. Yep. And it is not. When you look at actual objective records of things, there is not an uptick like always around full moons. Every once in a while there can be, but a full moon happens once every about 4 weeks. So like full moons are really common. But if something's, oh my gosh, it's so crazy, and then you look and it's around a full moon, and I put around in quotes, then it's really easy for people to say, oh yeah, see, there it is. And it just continues to fuel that idea. That's true for, I think, for a lot of superstitions, that confirmation bias.
I have one of I actually have a redheaded stepchild, which is pretty great.
You do literally. Uh-huh.
And what
But
people
he's
say
not
about
called
redheads.
Daryl, but your husband
No,
is.
my husband is Daryl, and then I also have a redheaded stepchild.
Yep.
But what people say about redheads, so like redheads, especially redheaded children, are crazier or like
Mm-hmm.
fiery or
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And it's like I don't think our personality is determined
By the
by our
color of
hair
your hair.
color.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the
Yeah.
genetics that influence your hair color are those genetics that like influence like your brain development or something.
Hmm. Yeah.
People do that with labs too, like the dogs.
Dogs.
They say that brown labs are crazier
Interesting.
when really the color of the lab is the same amount of difference as human hair color,
Mm.
like
Yeah.
genetically.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and unfortunately, as human beings, we have used some of these quote unquote patterns that we think we've seen, like you've described, to take advantage of other human beings too,
Mm,
and to reinforce ideas that actually aren't true about people, whether that's their hair color or skin tone or,
hmm.
whatever things that we see on the surface that we think indicate something else about what's going on inside of them, which so often is not actually the case. And it's unfortunate,
Yeah.
but that's
Yeah.
something that we're really good at as human beings.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think, Cheryl, instead of doing a quiz, since we sort of quizzed each other kind of through the whole lesson, why don't we do our end of unit reflection questions? Are you okay if we do that?
Oh my gosh. I'm so lucky that we're not doing a quiz today.
Yep. Are you wearing
I
your lucky sweater? Is that why?
mean, I've had this sweater for a while.
Okay, but now every time that we do this, if you wear your lucky sweater, maybe you won't have to do a quiz.
Oh boy. Okay. I'm not going to wash it either because maybe that has to do with it too. So, yeah.
Yep, that definitely
Yeah.
doesn't make it more smelly or gross and people to want to be around you less. That definitely never happens. Okay, our first reflection question for you, Cheryl, is what were some of the things that you found interesting in our quackery unit?
One thing I found interesting are the pieces that I believed to be true.
Mm.
And then you kind of did some corrections on, like on the essential oils one,
Mm-hmm.
that like, oh, so my tea tree oil is the only essential oil that's actually effective. And, and like,
Mm.
and then you're like, well, it's had these properties, but that's not necessarily on like whatever condition. And so that was really interesting that
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, some things that I was believing myself, that was
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And I also just found it interesting. I don't know, just how common it can be to believe in a pseudoscience or
Mm-hmm.
to hear mumbo jumbo that sounds scientific
Mm-hmm.
and trust it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think with the presence of the internet, it can be really hard for us to trust anything,
Yeah.
um, because you can put whatever you want on the internet and you can put whatever you want in your commercial and things like that. And so, but when something sounds smart, I think that we believe it, or when we see quote unquote proof.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are a lot of things that people claim as proof for whatever they're trying to promote. Um, we just kind of accept that. And then it's hard to know. So then if it's not true, then how would I learn that it's not true from reliable resource? It just feels like
Mm-hmm.
this vicious cycle, and really difficult. And that's where I think having friends like you who are scientists and are like more equipped and trained to be able to process some of those things, and filter through some of those things and say, well, actually, I do know this about this thing, and then to go from there and to be able to point those things out, is really helpful.
Yeah. I do think though, like we all have things, myself included, that we believe that are probably unfounded or based on misinformation or whatever. I referenced the documentary Behind the Curve when we talked about flat Earth. And one of the things that one of the people that they interview in that says that has really stuck with me and I think is true is if you dig deep enough, you can find something that pretty much everybody believes. Like each person has something that they believe that most other people would think is kind of wacky or weird or off base.
Mm.
And I think that is probably true. I'm sure there are exceptions somewhere, but we all have things. And for me, maybe they're not science things, but they could be history related things or art related things or, just other areas that I don't know, computer related things. I don't know, things that I just don't know as much about. And I might believe some of those things that aren't in fact true. And I'm finding things that I misunderstand all the time. And then with science, not only is there misinformation and people who believe things that aren't true, but also we learn more information. And so over time, our understanding of what's true changes and evolves as we learn more information. And sometimes that can be difficult for people as well to be like, well, but so-and-so said whatever the thing is, and now they're saying this other thing. So clearly they don't know what they're talking about. Whereas in fact, that is the nature of science. Going back to flat Earth, if we took everything as it was, once we knew it was true, quote unquote, we would all still believe that the Earth is flat because we would never be open to new information that showed us something that we didn't already believe. We would believe that the Earth was the center of the entire solar system and everything went around the Earth because just go outside and look. You can see it. We're not moving. I don't feel like I'm moving, so there's so many of these examples. And sometimes I have to be reminded for myself that, okay, there are a lot of areas where I feel like I'm not fooled in the way that other people are, but that doesn't mean I don't have blind spots. And that doesn't mean that there aren't things that I still need to learn and adjust to. So
that's a really good point. I think a key difference then between any person that you just like pull off the street or that we're friends with or anything and the wacky things they might believe are we vocalizing them to a large audience and trying to convince others of that, or are we trying to learn more and being open to learning more or being proved wrong and being careful with who we share with until we feel like we understand what is true better.
Yeah, that's hard.
Or using it to sell a product online.
That's true. That's what I should be doing. Hey, we've got a podcast. Why aren't we selling products right here? All right. Second reflection question. What were some things that you found challenging about this unit?
I mean, some of these things, it was hard to identify. Well, where exactly is the science off? Like the water ionizer. It's like, this sounds pretty scientific, but I also don't think it's true. So then where is it off is like hard to point out. And then I think a challenging thing too of this unit is that you and I don't believe in these things we've been talking about. So we're coming at it with a bias against it. So I don't know how well we did at not just coming off as like dismissive of the whole idea, because I've listened to podcasts where people have talked about things that I believe that they don't. And when they're dismissive, I'm like, okay, well, then I'm not going to listen to you. But when they represent what I believe in a way that I feel like is respectful, so it's like, that's challenging.
Yeah.
When we just already disagree.
Yeah. And I thank you for vocalizing that. That's been something that you and I have talked about, and we felt with this unit that we wanted to be honest about the scientific perspective, but also not to just completely dismiss and say that the people are crazy or how could they possibly believe this or those sorts of things, but rather to look at how do we as humans process things and how do people get to these places where they believe things that science shows is not true. And there's lots of different ways that happens. And like we've said today with all these superstitions, we all have some of these things that at least at some point we believed were true that actually maybe aren't true. And whether it comes from culture or it comes from personal experience or whatever that is that leads us to these ideas. So yeah, it's a good point. Final reflection question. What concepts do you think you might remember or might stick with you from this unit?
I mean, the first one that comes to mind is that if you rub the oil on your wrist 3 times clockwise, that it will activate the electric properties of it and align your DNA.
Align your DNA. You know, I'm talking about DNA right now in my biology classes. I should probably tell them how to align their DNA, shouldn't I?
Yes, yes. But make sure to get the correct brand of essential oil when you share it with them as well.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
I mean, I think one takeaway for me too is definitely like today, talking about superstitions, there's a lot of people I think who are in the place where they're like, I don't really believe in that, but I don't know if I disbelieve in that. And I think that's where they might fall in a lot of these categories that we had talked about. And they may not be like all in and like, oh yeah, this is 100% working, but they're like open to it. And that's not a terrible place to be, especially with different health claims, you know, or different things like that. Is like, I don't know, maybe it works. And if you don't really care a lot and you don't really care about doing your own research, then like maybe that's fine, you know.
Yeah, and if it doesn't have some damaging side effects or things, because sometimes if they're health related, they can. Sometimes they're completely innocuous and it doesn't do a thing.
Yeah. And I think another thing that will stay with me is I think you shared a lot of good filters, to, ways of thinking about or like approaching these different topics. Like we talked about what is a scientific claim and what's the placebo effect and anecdotal evidence, confirmation bias, among other things. And that was cool to talk about, like, well, what does that actually look like? And then how could I look at something and like ask those questions for myself, you know?
Yeah. Well, good. I'm hopeful that it's helpful for you. And like I said, I don't have it all figured out and I get duped by things too, but I think you can be too skeptical. I think there is such a thing as being too skeptical, but at least from my perspective, I haven't reached that limit yet. Because I think, at least for me, if I'm approaching something skeptically, it doesn't necessarily mean that I have decided that it's not true, but it's more like, that just doesn't hit me right. You kind of talked about that with some things for you too. And I think it's, what do you do when that happens? Do you go like, well, I don't know, but okay, fine. Or do you go, well, I don't know, I'm going to dig in deeper and find out more information, or ask someone who might know more, or whatever. That's something that has happened kind of back and forth in my family. Sometimes my mom or one of my sisters will like come across something and they're like, I don't know about this, but you know more science. What do you think? They'll send me a text message or whatever. And then sometimes, because my mom, she's retired now, but she was a counselor. And so did a lot. She got her master's in family counseling. I don't know if it's family counseling, but in counseling psychology, things like that. And so she's got a lot of background in that. And so, there was a podcast that I had listened to recently that was talking about one particular kind of in trend in therapy. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. I don't have enough background to know if this one person's take on this therapy approach is accurate. So I sent it over to my mom and be like, hey, what do you think? Because I was like, I have ideas, but I don't have enough expertise to really have all those filters. And I think that's totally legitimate. A way to do that is just when you recognize those things, you're like, then what do you do? And I think that's where we don't have to know everything, but you mentioned the internet, and that can definitely make things harder and more challenging, but it also means we have more opportunities to access experts. It's just a matter of figuring out who they are.
That's a really good point. I think, Ryan, we will figure out when you become too skeptical if you yourself become a conspiracy theorist. I think that is too skeptical.
There you go. I think that's a good demarcation.
Yeah.
I think that's all the time that we have for this week's lesson. So why don't you go ahead and pack up your stuff and get ready for my closing remarks. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at I Slept Through Science, or on Twitter at Slept Science.
If you have dumb science questions like I do, please send them to us. You can email us at isleptthroughscience@gmail.com, or you can even send us a voice memo and we'll play it on the podcast.
Please rate and review our podcast to tell other people what you think about it, subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode, and share about our podcast on social media.
Thank you to Beth Reed Miller for the artwork. You can check out more of Beth's artwork at Beth Is Something. Okay, great. Thanks. Bye.
The bell doesn't dismiss you. I dismiss you.